Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Muhammad Bilal Zafar, an assistant professor at School of Islamic Economics, Banking and Finance, Minhaj University, Lahore. On behalf of the Minhaj University, Lahore, I welcome you all to the second day of the 4th World Islamic Economics and Finance Conference 2021. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah Almighty, we had a very wonderful day one of the conference. Yesterday, after the introduction and welcome note of the conference, we had 2 keynote speeches, 2 panel discussions, and 1 technical session. And the day was ended with Cambridge Islamic Banking Master Quiz. Today, inshallah, we will have 2 keynote speeches, 2 panel discussions, 2 technical sessions, and a launching ceremony of Global Islamic Finance Report 2021. And in the last, we will have, inshallah, conference synthesis, declaration, and vote of thanks by the worthy Pro-Vice Chancellor of Minhaj University, Lahore. So, as per the schedule, we begin the second day of the 4th World Islamic Economics and Finance Conference 2021 with a keynote speech by Mr. Mughees Shaukat. He is Vice President at International Association of Partnership Economics and Finance, Kyrgyzstan. He is also Vice President at Fingel Global, Canada, Vice Chairman at AOFE Education Board, Bahrain. He is Head of Islamic Finance at College of Business and Financial Studies under Central Bank of Oman. Mr. Mughees, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, dear brother Bilal, and all the organizers. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the folks from wherever they are joining us, depending on which time zones they are in. First of all, let me congratulate Minhaj and all the support partners from all over the world, very key players, top institutions, to have come together. And yet again, the 4th consecutive year, of course, this time in an online version, given the situation all over. I congratulate you, all of you again, for putting up such a beautiful show again. And I was told that it was nearly 3,000 live participants who joined the whole event. And, independent of those numbers who are actually, must have seen the whole conference from yesterday, from other social media streaming and live broadcasting. So congratulate, and this already is a success. Me being a part of this event, alhamdulillah, and I take pride in this, as a component where, I'm always gracing, this occasion in terms of, contributing to it through my thought process. One of the key things that always attracts me to this beautiful event under Minhaj University, Lahore, is the fact that to me, it's a little different from the other Islamic financial events. I'm not saying the other Islamic financial events are any lower in quality and whatnot, but the uniqueness point of view is the following. I think that, not only the scholarly gathering, the institutional gathering from a government to semi-government to academic to institutional and even private sector, not only that makes it powerful, and you can see so many logos of global brand that have supported this event. The uniqueness also comes from the set of intellectual capacity, set of expertise and experience this event brings under one roof, on one platform, to value add in a new age, unique manner. And this is the epicenter of its uniqueness, that once that mindset is gathered in a very unique way, it further unifies itself by what it has to offer. And I was, again, I had the pleasure to listen to all the speakers, all the prestigious names, panel session wise or keynotes wise or the paper presentation wise, and again, I was flabbergasted to know that, the uniqueness is maintained, if not increased, every other version. So congratulations to all of you. One of the things that I observed, and which I always focus on, and I learn from other folks who are involved in this, speaking wise and otherwise, is the key take-homes, that you can take as an audience, as a listener, particularly if you're from the younger lot, the key take-homes. I had the pleasure to listen to a number of key speakers and the themes session that carries. And what it did was, I don't know if folks have noticed that when it came to my keynote address in the program that is mentioned and distributed all over, I intentionally didn't give a title. I had an idea what I'm going to speak about, but I wanted to actually listen to what others has already said in terms of the uniqueness, in terms of the theme, the topic, and the sub-themes of the event. It gave me some food for thought, and which I have now translated, I call it as food for talk, which I'm going to share right now. And I want to share my slide while I'm talking to you. Now, this is a topic that I fine-tuned accordingly as per the outcomes. Of course, it has a basic essence behind that, even though, even before I submitted for this keynote, but it got fine-tuned from what people had to say yesterday. And all of the areas were covered, but what I want to make sure, and the NIA is the following henceforth. I want to begin from where the whole notion of yesterday's discussion was left. I want to bring that discussion in focus. I want to glide it in a way that it sort of takes us through the whole notions and the whole ideas that we are going to carry forward, and not only going to carry forward, but we're going to discuss in the remaining part of today's intellectual discourses. And this is, so I want to be the intermediary between yesterday and what is on offer today. And of course, try and fill in whatever was left yesterday, and then of course, try and embark on the journey in the quest, what is on offer today. Now, as you could see, I'll be talking on key measures that, of course, are there in overall conference themes as well. I'm going to focus on what we call as multipolarity. Of course, pandemic is a very, very hot topic these days. The world is still suffering through pandemic. Technology, everybody talks about technology, the technology disruption. It's now buzzword, so much so that I think it's on the verge of being used as an abusive way in terms of its efficacy. And of course, this notion of green swans, not many people are aware of this. I want to link all of these four concepts that is ideally yesterday's discussions are in summary, the conference theme itself, the sub-themes, and what is on offer today. What I want to do is, I want to control of, I want to make sure that I want to squeeze all of this information and then tell you a trajectories of Islamic finance. Islamic finance, Quo Vadis is a Latin phrase. Islamic finance, where are you going and where are you marching? In times of multipolarity, in times of pandemic, in times of technology, in times of green swans, and I'll tell you what green swans are. So what does it mean to Islamic finance? As a result, as a natija, Islamic finance, co with us. Where are you marching? Where are you going? Do you know what your importance is as an outcome of all of the gathering and all of the developments that is happening around you? So this is exactly what I want to set a trajectory on, to pinpoint my focus that Islamic finance, where to now? Where to now in times of pandemic, in times of technology, in times of green swans, multipolarity, and all the other developments? What are you up to in other ways? So this, what are you up to or where are you marching, is going to be what my focus is, and squeezing all the information from yesterday and then linking it for the upcoming discussions. But first I want to start, of course, by, my empathy, sympathies, condolences to people who got affected by this menace we call as COVID-19. Folks who lost their lives, who lost their loved one, may those souls rest in peace. I want to give my full backing, support, prayers, spiritual support to all those, the governments, the military, the medical staff, doctors, everybody in whatever capacity, whoever is involved. I want to offer my profound appreciations to all the frontline people who are busy in rescuing humankind from all of this pandemic. I'm very glad that vaccines are now available. I'm guessing a vaccine in Pakistan is on the way as well, if not already there. So I want to start with all of this, and I want to see that while we are facing the health hazard, yes, but simultaneously the world has also faced and keep on facing an economic hazard. And this slide, which I borrowed from one of my beautiful friends, a key component of the Islamic financial industry, Professor Tariqullah. One of the fine names, the pioneers of the whole Islamic economics and financial rejuvenation of the same. You can see that as a natija, as a result, while we talk about the health hazard, and while the previous slides was condolences and sympathies and profound appreciations, this is the economic mess that the world is facing. And you can see so many blockages right now that the economic scenario has seen, and it has never been this before. It's so unprecedented in so many ways. We've seen financial crisis, we've seen great depressions, we've seen great recessions, we see so many other stuff, political, carnage and stuff like that, war-torn economies. But this is different, folks. This is new. At least over the last 80, 70 years, the world has not seen a health hazard of this scale that is so multifaceted and multi-oriented in nature in terms of its catastrophes. So what it has done is a couple of other results. This is the numbers game, where the dent to the global GDP is of massive scale. I remember when I was doing my PhD thesis and I was going through some research, and we were talking about this concept, what we call as yamhaq, the mahak concept in ayah 276 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which says yamhaqullahu riba. We were trying to decode the notion of yamhaq, of riba, vis-a-vis studying the debt-based financial system that is pervasive in the global economy. And over there, some startling figures were seen. And one of the figures was that, masalan, for example, it took 30 years for a US economy to reach a $15 trillion status. 30 years of enormous layers and layers of hard work, back-end and front-end work, that it took them to reach 30 years of a modern age, new capitalism driven $15 trillion size of an economy. But when the Great Recession of 08-09 happened, almost half of it was wiped. And this is what the concept of mahak is. Probably the same over here. And straight away, the world has already dented 11%. And this is what 2020 August, September estimates. I'm guessing we are yet to see, because first phase is to stop the pandemic, then to get rid of the pandemic through vaccination, then to see what damage has done and try and bring back to normality, and then to move on from there. So it's a 4-stage process that the world has yet to complete and yet to go on. So these numbers are only going to exaggerate. I mean, I was looking at some other numbers of this Asian economies. India is one number that was surprisingly and shockingly so badly hit health-wise as well as economy-wise. There were numbers with the range of almost a dent of over 20% to their GDP. So these are those yamhaq, the mahak, the downfalls that the economy has seen in terms of GDP losses, the growth losses. Poverty levels have increased. I'm just telling you what this mess has done, because I want to link all of my stuff to what I've just mentioned in my initial slides. And as you could see, the poverty alleviation has increased. Of course, this was very predictable, because if there are economic dents, if there are health hazards, pressures everywhere. So the first data point that you would see skyrocket in terms of, exacerbating itself is the poverty projection. And this is another slide, again, thanks to Prof. Tariqullah and one of his presentations. What I want to tell you is, among all of this, is now, and when you see all of this stuff and see how the global economy and the global world of mankind itself is facing the mess, and of course, the pandemic is one of the main reasons. I want to talk about the notions that we have already discussed in the title slide. I want to inform you that, guys, you have to understand that this pandemic that is causing havoc in the world right now is not a normal world as we knew. It's not a unipolar world. It's a multipolar world, and hence the significance of pandemic becomes that much more pronounced. What do I mean when I say it's a multipolar world? Multipolar world in terms of economic polarity means that the world right now, and it's been almost like 10 or 15 years now, if we can say that it's not a unipolar economy version altogether, where perhaps United States or perhaps a Japanese economy or one or two others economy, mainly United States, was the unipolar, the main center of the world, driving the whole economic progression of the world. So I don't know if you've heard these phrases or not, particularly in times of financial crisis, that if US sneezes, everybody catches the cold. Of course, this is true to some extent, but not more truer. Why? Because now you have poles like China, you have poles like Russia, you have poles like some of the Southeast Asian countries. Indonesia is one of them. Brazil is one of them. India was tending to be, but you could see over the last 2 years what has happened to India. So you now have something we call as a classic case of a multipolar economic growth regime that is driving the world together. And this is why what happens is when the world becomes a multipolar growth regime, the phenomena of globalization, the interconnectivity among us, among the economies, among the global dynamics becomes so tight that, I don't know if how many people are aware, there is an effect we termed as butterfly effect, that it's so tightly now, the economy, the world economy being a multipolar phase now, it's so tightly globally connected that a butterfly flapping its wing, for example, in Pakistan or China, will send shivers or wind waves to the rest of the world. This is what the butterfly effect is. This is how tightly the global economy is now connected. And if a pandemic supposedly spread in Wuhan can cause havoc to so many other countries, I mean, there are 207 countries and almost all the countries are affected, if not the whole globe. This is the pandemic was a classic case of demonstration of a butterfly effect. But having said that, while the pandemic in a multipolar regime now has its fair share, it's causing havoc because of this tightly globalized, synergized world, where a pandemic butterfly effect is causing so much havoc in a connected way, there is a flip side to it, folks, as well. And this is where being a multipolar economy offers some positivity to the world as the flip side of it. And while a lot of things can be discussed politically, socially, ethically, religiously, spiritually, whatnot, I want to focus the flip side to all the financial sector, and I want to refocus it in fact, focus it more on the Islamic financials. I would consider this as an opportunity for Islamic finance, and I would term it as a third time lucky opportunity. Why I say it's a third time lucky opportunity, prove itself and prove its mandate and efficacy, is because the first opportunity was when it was rejuvenated back in the 60s and 70s. Of course, there was a reason for rejuvenation because folks at that time realized that the conventional financial world is not as potent in terms of economic prosperity and stability and sustainability as compared to the Islamic notions. So they rejuvenated the Islamic financial system. They did a lot of work, credit to them, 30 odd years. They tried to develop the system in whatever shape. Come to 08 to 09. We were yet struggling to announce Islamic finance and catch our bearings vis-a-vis the models of Islamic finance that we have to attempt, which we are still caught up with, unfortunately. Financial crisis happened, and the world was again, questioning the models of conventional interest-bearing debt finance. And it was a second time lucky opportunity to announce or re-announce Islamic finance vis-a-vis its efficacy, vis-a-vis its stability notions, vis-a-vis its risk-sharing driven economy. But I think we still missed it because, why do I say that? Because questions that related to Islamic finance 40 years ago are still the question that are commonly asked. And I'm guessing, in this conference as well, people will still be asking those questions in any Q&A slots. Pandemic in this time, which has shaken the world economy altogether, and the graphs I've shown you is a world economy that has been devastated by the pandemic, economy that is debt-based economy. Now, I had another keynote in Russia, and I spoke about why this has happened and why this has not happened. To put it in a nutshell, basically, the shock absorption capacity of a global economy, even though a scenario like pandemic, which deemed to be natural, is happening, is because of its shallowness, its weakness, its financialization-driven version that makes it so prone to instability, where not only a financial crisis, a non-financial crisis driven, supposed to be a pandemic scenario as is, can trigger the collapse and the mahak of the conventional financial system based on debt-based economy or interest-bearing debt. Now, this is where Islamic finance comes in, and this is why I term pandemic as a third time lucky opportunity. But this time, if we want to translate this opportunity into a real model and convert or materialize this opportunity, we have to make sure that we do not do the same cognitive dissonance or cognitive deficiency mistakes that we perform in the last two lucky opportunities that we had, and sort of failed to announce Islamic finance as a reliable, suitable alternate. And we can only do that if we reorient ourselves in terms of understanding what Islamic finance is. Remember, we are talking about new age economy that is multipolar, of course, pandemic driven multipolar, and that is driven by technology advancements, and of course, facing the verge of green swan. I'll explain what green swans are. This is so important for folks who are related to Islamic finance in whatever capacity to stop and then reorient themselves, re-strategize, readjust, redevelop, and rephrase, reframe themselves vis-a-vis these developments that are now surrounding and that I've just encapsulated very clearly, so that this time, it's a third time lucky opportunity. We can trend Islamic finance the way it's supposed to be, the way it meant it was. This would also include rephrasing Islamic finance from a no riba philosophy to its main philosophy of risk sharing philosophy. I've given many talks, I've written so many times, and you can easily Google stuff or YouTube stuff where I've talked about why risk sharing and why not the no riba model is the actual model of Islamic finance. Not only that, guys, simultaneously, some reorientation has to be made, what I call as a new age understanding and implementation of maqasid al-sharia. Now, this is what brings me to something we call as, the green swans. The green swans notion is the fact, guys, that relates directly to climate change issues. There was a session yesterday on environmental issues and stuff like that, and I was hoping that, somebody would go and dwell more deep, and I thought that it was, more or less 101 its orientation. Climate change, guys, is going to be a much more dangerous issue on hands than pandemic. And if we are not alert to it, folks, third time or fourth time lucky opportunity, there are no more opportunities. This is why the notions or the advent or the surge of what is coming your way in terms of climate change, you have to reorient yourself in terms of maqasid al-sharia as well. And we have to orient our maqasid al-sharia understanding from people, planet, profit strategy rather than profit, and then social responsibility or CSR strategy model. So the understanding of maqasid sharia has also to be reoriented in a new age where people, planet, and profit philosophies come in as center stage. We've heard the fact, I was in another conference where, a huge banker, Islamic banker was very proudly and rightly saying that, even in pandemic, Islamic banks have been stable as compared to conventional banking. And we have not heard a story where there has been a half collapse of Islamic bank due to pandemic than, in conventional arenas. And he was right. But I want to qualify this statement, and I want to, rejudge this stability from the fact that, you've not been tested. You're too small to be tested. These were the claims back in 08, 09. And then there was a research 6 years down the road from IMF that said that Islamic financial institutions are as much risk transfer or risk shifter as compared to conventional cousins. And the trajectory they're facing would face the yamhak as well, of course, in whatever scope or scale. So if you think that pandemic has not collapsed you, you have to, stop and ask yourself, are you big enough to be considered for a collapse? Or have you actually demonstrated yourself or announced yourself, to be that noticeable enough? I know you're 2.6 trillion, you're on the verge of over 3 trillion, but that's not enough compared to the conventional financial sector. So stability, Islamic finance, that too in pandemic or financial crisis being something that to be relying on, I don't think that is going to be a very, very sound grounds to rely on, particularly what's coming your way in terms of green swans, and that too in a multipolar technology-driven economy. Not only that, and why I say that, stability, which will be tested more and has to rephrase and reorient Islamic finance from its fitra or its nature of risk-sharing finance, because the risk management, the risk that you would see, guys, are not going to be normal. They're going to be cyber risks, because everything has to be driven by technology. And I want to come back to what I want to relate to Islamic finance vis-a-vis technology, but there has to be climate change driven risk. Now, climate change driven risks are unprecedented and unforeseen. They're not normal, they're not cyber, they're not normal risk, or they're not physical in nature where the climate change will happen and there will be a tsunami or a earthquake and there will be physical collapses, physical damage, building collapses, natural disasters. Yes, there is one part, but there is also called something in climate change transition risk. Transition risk means is where the focus of your risk management shifts or transits to another form of risk management. So for example, I was trying to use technology in 2025, and I wanted to use my technology skills to create a smart contract for Musharaka Mutanakisa, for example. And I was so happy, and the bank was so looking forward to it. Climate change risk happens. And now my focus is diverted to manage what is much more priority on hand. For example, climate change is causing not only financial risks or physical risks, it is causing me to defocus or detract my focus to something that I now have to deal on a risk that is a transition risk. So my focus has to now transit to another technology orientation, and that technology which I was earlier utilizing to create a smart contract has now to be shifted to come up with a technology solution to manage a risk that has been caused by climate change risk, be it financial sort of risk as well. So this is the transition type of risk. We call it transition risk that are never been seen before. So this is going to be a, absolutely unprecedented situation that banking in general, finance in general, Islamic banks or finance in general has to face. Again, reorienting Islamic finance in a new age version that is predominantly based on risk sharing will have those absorption capacities that will definitely try and address these issues. Of course, in all of this, guys, I mean, I recall Professor Kabir Hassan talking about that yesterday in terms of regulatory affairs. Mustafa Umar, a great brother, a great component of Islamic finance, was also talking about this risk-sharing falsafa and how the governance, standardization, regulatory system has also need to orient towards that. It has to be new age in regulatory as well as Sharia governance as well, because you're not only going to manage a technology-driven Islamic finance, you're also going to manage a climate change-oriented version of Islamic finance as well. And not only regulation, but Sharia governance has to be new age as well. One prescription for regulation is that for such a model, such a new age model of Islamic finance, I call it version 2.0, you have to regulate it from an activity-based regulation rather than an entity-based regulation. It means you don't want to regulate it as if you are regulating a technology-based Islamic bank regulation model like what we do traditionally. You have to go activity by activity and regulate those activities that are coming out of technology solutions, of course, with the notions of climate change and focus. Activity-based regulation would be the way forward, or better way forward, including Sharia governance rather than entity-based. Of course, Sharia governance can resort a lot to AI, smart contracts, and robo-advisory to help them not only preempt, foresee, but also manage the current intricacies of what smart contracts, for example, the new age contracts are going to be. I wouldn't mind a Sharia conference being a Sharia scholar or a Sharia board member relying on AI facilities, for example, risk profiling. For example, if somebody can design me an AI-based or a robo-advisory-based platform where I just enter the details of a contract documentation or a new product that the bank submits for my approval, I just need to enter the basic details of that contract, and that robo-advisory platform designed for Sharia scholars, Sharia board people, based on AI, would test or risk profile that contract information for me as per my own Sharia methodologies and Sharia orientation from end to end, financial risk, non-financial, political, social spectrums all in one platform together and test the product and then see, I mean, wow, is this product worth launching in the market or no, or not in terms of Sharia compliance of it. So these sort of things, who can do that? I believe, you know, I mean, there has been a lost 2 decades at least.
Sorry, Mughees, we are going out of time.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes. I'm just wrapping it up. You know, I mean, we have lost a couple of decades for producing young folks, young generation. I think the younger folks are best equipped to orient such a philosophy, such a system that can address these issues. Opportunity for Pakistan, yes. I mean, a lot of opportunity for Pakistan. You have a huge youth population. There is this Naya Pakistan phenomena going on. The Kamyab Jawan program is an amazing prospect. You know, the low housing society, of course, CPAC. I have to see that what role Islamic finance has to play in this, Islamic social finance, even to counter the upcoming notion of what we call as climate change. I think the Pakistani Prime Minister has also referred to that many times. How much Islamic finance is going to contribute and have a stake in securing, an economy that can absorb the shocks of climate change. I don't know how much Islamic finance are involved in the 10 billion tree tsunami, what share of Islamic finance or banks have there, I mean, as their responsibility. Take homes, guys, I mean, we're looking at an Islamic finance version 2.0 that has to be oriented on risk sharing, technology, financial inclusion, UN SDGs, and climate change in focus. And by the way, whatever name we call it, UN SDGs, circular, blue, or green economy, that has been coded to us 1400 years ago, and we still call it Islamic finance. In how do we know it? If we train our youth from our historical perspective, we must tell them what our history of Islamic economic thought is. Keep this in the future in focus. Orient something they call as Islamic finance with a new age fiqh of Islamic finance version 2.0 in a multipolar economy. And I think with the vision of 2030, youth leading the way, Islamic finance, Kovedas, this is where you are going to orient yourself in vis-a-vis technology, black swans, green swans, and perform better in a multipolar economy, particularly to a Pakistani economy, which has been a pioneer of Islamic finance and addressed its economic objective in a new age manner driven by youth. This is what I have to say. Thank you so very much.